Hey everybody, and welcome to my Resto Druid guide for 7.0. So Resto Druids at the moment are playing pretty much the exact same as how they were. They've just got a few new mechanics that are new things to think about, and they've just gotten a few extra utility spells to add in. Most of them are just passives, so they don't change the gameplay very much, but they are quite nice to play with, and they are a good addition to the class. So the first major change to the Resto Druid was their mastery. So your mastery now makes it so the more healing over time effects you have on a target, the more healing you do. So this is 7% just in PvP gear. This does get a lot higher, and this does scale decently well. So the one problem Resto Druid's having at the moment is that their mastery plays into a single target healing role, whereas traditionally a Resto Druid and how their spells work makes them an AoE healer. So they want to be padding rejuvenations across the entire raid, and then generally you're only going to be having one hot on that target, so you're not getting affected by your mastery as much as you could. So mastery kind of has an anti-synergy with how Resto Druid plays in a raid. So that is one concern I do have about the class. They did recently nerf the mastery as well. So, and then the throughput is still very good. So potentially later on in the expansion, we might see this change around where mastery has more of an effect, where Druid is more pushed into a sort of tank healing role if they do decide to buff the mastery again. And then maybe the throughput will just get reduced baseline. But currently, as it stands, Resto Druid is one of the strongest throughput healers, and they have a lot of burst healing. So they do definitely play their part in a raid group, and they are a very strong pickup. But they do have that anti-synergy going on, which might come and bite them in the arse later on. So the basics of Druid now at the moment is the same thing. So raid healing, you just want to be putting rejuvenation on people who have taken damage, / who are taking damage. You want to try and be keeping your you're not a spot healer, so you want to be using rejuvenation on people who are going to be taking damage or have taken enough damage where rejuve will be effective. Your wild growth now has a lot of synergy with a lot of spells and does do a very large amount of healing. So wild growth is now actually quite mana efficient, and you pretty much want to be using it off cooldown when people have been taking damage, when it's going to be effective healing. Efflorescence is the same it's always been. Life Bloom now, you can't refresh it. That's another fairly big change, but it's not too game breaking. You just have to keep in mind, try and keep it always up, keep it always on whoever's actively tanking, and it'll be good. Swift Mend now is a huge heal, huge single target heal. It still has the synergy with Soul of the Forest, which is quite nice. But yeah, to give you an idea, Swift Mend is now twice the healing of Rejuvenation almost. So it's quite a bit. And then there's Regrowth. Regrowth is not very good. So it's about half the healing of a Rejuvenation for twice the mana. And then it has that 60% increased crit, so it's not as bad as it looks. So it's really on average about a 75k heal, but it's still it's your spammy spell. You don't really want to be using it too much in raids. It's the only thing your Omen of Clarity now affects. So the only reason you would really want to be using Regrowth is actually for the hot to be applying Mastery on a tank, or someone's taken a lot of damage. Healing Touch is baseline, just more healing, and it's half the mana, so try and stay away from Regrowth as much as you can. It's not a very good spell anymore. It's kind of a trap. I mean, it's still going to be used quite extensively in your 5-mans, just because it's quick, fast heal, but it does play into that role. The other thing Druids now have is Innovate. So, as everyone may know, Innovate pretty much lets someone every 3 minutes cast without any mana cost. So this spell is extremely good. It does save a lot of mana. The general consensus is you want to be putting it on something like a Shaman or a Mistweaver Monk, just because they can dump the most amount of mana the quickest. If you want to be putting it on yourself, sure, it's nice to be saving some healing, but you can't dump that much mana and you can't put out as much healing as other healers can, because your only really like big spell that is a good amount of healing is Wild Growth, and Wild Growth has a 10-second cooldown, so you can't be using it twice during your Innovate. So the general consensus for Innovate is, yeah, be putting on those Mistweavers and the Resto Druids, the Resto Shamans, sorry. And that's one thing, you know, you have to be learning in your raid group, is just, you know, you should be conserving your mana so you can be you can be using your mana cooldown on somebody else who can use it more effectively. And then you've got to make sure also the person you're putting it on knows how to use that effectively. So let's go straight into the talents. So the first tier of talents is all just about single target healing, pretty much. So you have Prosperity, 2 charges on Swiftmen and reduces the cooldown by 5 seconds. I would say this is probably the best one. So Swiftmen does a lot of healing, instant cast. It's that's one thing Druid is lacking a lot of at the moment, is just an emergency heal for somebody. As much as you don't want to be playing the spot healing role, it is nice to have 1 or 2 spells that can do that. So Swiftmen isn't a lot of healing, but you know, it's enough compared to my HP. It's 17% heal or something. So Swiftmend is fine. 2 charges, nice. Does synergize with Solar Forest quite well. So Cenarian Ward. This is, you might want to look at taking this in your 5-mans, although there is something to be said about taking Prosperity 2 in 5-mans and Abundance. They're all good. Nothing in this talent is too bad to be taken. They all have their situational uses. So Cenarian Ward heals for more than Swiftmend. It's on a 30-second cooldown, and it counts as a hot, so it does actually count towards improving the healing you do through hots through your mastery. So it is more mana efficient than Prosperity, having a second Swiftmend, but it's not on demand burst instant healing. So I generally tend to take Prosperity over it, but it is alright to take. And then Abundance, so this reduces the cast time on your Healing Touch and increases the crit on your Regrowth by 10% respectively. So this spell is kind of nice to take. You know, you put out a whole lot of rejuves on people, you reduce the cast time of your Healing Touch by a lot, you can spam Healing Touches on people. It is quite nice to take in 5-man environments, even in raid environments where you can just be kind of like a spot healer, because mana is a big thing. Just the one thing to think about that though is Healing Touch does do less healing than Rejuvenation, and is less mana efficient. So if you can be getting effective rejuvenations out there, you probably want to still be using Rejuvenation. Again, that just kind of plays into you knowing your role as a healer. So, you know, you're just a throughput healer, you're not a spot healer, you don't really want to be casting Healing Touch. If you're having to cast Healing Touch, you might want to look at, you know, where the weaknesses in your raid group are and try and address them. So the tier 30 talents, so you have Renewal, just the instant 30% heal. This is quite a big amount of healing. You know, and in comparison to your other spells, it's pretty much going to be your single biggest heal. It's a pretty nice personal cooldown. You just got to weigh up whether you can. Again, this is the tier of talents where there's going to be, you know, 2 movement ones and 1 kind of healing self cooldown one. Displacer Beast is generally the go-to for a lot of people, so everyone knows that Displacer Beast just blinks you forward, puts you in cat form. So I generally take Displacer Beast because having a blink is always nice, even though it does cost you, you know, that 1 global cooldown, but that's okay. And then Wild Charge just gives you a whole bunch of different options. Wild Charge is fine. It's just, you actually have to have a target to leap to for the non-shapeshifted, so that's what you're in Resto. So you can't, you know, choose where you want to go. You have to go where someone is already. So it can be, you know, it can be situationally good. It does have a significantly lower cooldown than Displacer Beast, but again, everything's situational. So tier 45, these are all your affinities. So Resto Druid now gets to choose between having pretty much an off-spec they can play while they're in a raid. So Balance Affinity is just range DPS, Feral is melee DPS, and Guardian is a sort of tanking thing. So generally the go-to is either Balance Affinity or Guardian Affinity. Balance Affinity is kind of nice because the increased 5 range yard is quite significant. You know, getting out of range for people you can't heal is a pretty big problem, so having 45-yard range on your spells is quite nice. But the thing is, you do lose the passive 10% you get from Guardian Affinity. 10% damage reduction is a fairly large amount. Depends on the encounter. You know, you might not be, you know, you might just find you need more range. Say on something like Iron Reaver, range might be nicer. But that's up to you. In 5-man content, I would generally stick with Guardian Affinity, just because you're not going to be outranging people, and you generally have a lot more run speed than most classes anyway, so you don't need the Feral Affinity passive. So Guardian Affinity is probably the go-to for most encounters. It's just Balanced Affinity is quite hard to pass up to. It just depends on the encounter you're doing and whether people are going to be stacked or spread out, or you know, you have some role where you need to maybe follow someone who's running off in the distance. It's just, you know, situational. So tier 60 is all just utility, so you have a 5-second stun and a 50-second cooldown. Cool. Mass Entanglement does the same as it's always done, roots a whole bunch of people in place for 20 seconds, very good spell. Has its situational uses on some bosses, and then Typhoon, the knockback. You can choose whatever you want here. So tier 75, this is where it starts to get interesting. So Soul of the Forest has nice synergy with Swiftmend. So every time you cast Swiftmend, you get increased healing on your next regrowth or rejuvenation by 200%, or the healing on your wild growth by 75%. These work out to be the same throughput almost. It's just wild growth. I think wild growth slightly more. You don't ever want to be using your regrowths for this. Regrowth isn't a very powerful heal. You know, you can, you know, if you are need to do that single target healing, it's fine to be going, you know, Swiftmend regrowth. That is going to be a lot of single target healing, but you are going to be wasting quite a bit not using that on rejuvenation. So Solar Forest is nice to be picking up in raid environments. It is it's a nice thing you can use for burst healing, coupled with a few of your talents. So Solar Forest is definitely viable. It's just, you know, preference, up to you. You can be mitigating, you know, quite regular damage using Solar Forest if you use it properly. Your wild growth does heal for a very large amount, so you know it can be used quite effectively. But the only problem is then obviously it's a hot, so you know some of it might be wasted. So Incarnation, Tree of Life, it's the same as it's always been. 3-minute cooldown, reduces the, well, actually we'll go test it out now. So we can just see all the tooltips. So reduces the mana cost of your rejuvenation by 30% and the healing by 50%. So pretty much in this phase you can just be spamming out rejuves on everybody. Your wild growth now affects 2 additional people, so that makes it affect 8 people. And your regrowth is instant cast, so you pretty much just want to be rejuvenation as many people as you can while it's got the reduced mana cost, and then wild growthing off cooldown. This is a fairly big cooldown. You get passive 15% increased healing, so you do put out quite a lot of healing. It's just whether you want to weigh up, like, whether you can use that effectively in a fight with your other healers and make sure you time your cooldowns properly. So the last talent in here is Cultivation. I reckon this is a very strong talent. This kind of leads you into, you know, the Resto Shaman sort of situation where, you know, people are taking lots of damage. You're going to be doing a lot more healing. So essentially, what Cultivation is, it pretty much does the same throughput as a Rejuvenation. It's just free, and it procs every single time someone's healed by Rejuvenation when they're under 60% HP. So this procs quite a bit. Obviously, in harder content, it's going to be proccing more, and it's going to be more throughput. And it's something you don't need to worry about. So it's something that's just going to be popping, you know, when you're doing your normal rotation. So Cultivation usually comes out as, you know, quite a significant amount of healing. You usually, you know, to put a number on it, it's usually like 10 to 15%. But that's obviously very, you know, situational in the fight. Obviously, as people are going to be taking more damage, it should be doing pretty much the same as, you know, if people are low for the entire fight, your Cultivation will be doing the same amount of healing as your Rejuvenation, which is, you know, quite a significant amount. And then obviously, it also counts towards your mastery, so it's another hot you can be using to stack on people. So when you are playing that raid healing role and you're just putting out rejuvenations on people, essentially having cultivation will then be an increased 7% healing on rejuvenation and the cultivation itself. So that is something to consider. That is, just kind of the go-to, I would say, for most raid cooldowns. But everything in this talent is good. You're not gonna go wrong by choosing anything in here. So that's good to know. So the tier 90 ones, this one's more kind of one-sided. So Spring Blossom allows your efflorescence just to give people a small hot. So the small hot counts towards your mastery. As you can see here, I've just got the talent there, so healing for 4,763 every 2 seconds. So that's a nice heal. It's not affected by haste, that is one thing to note. So you get a little bit of anti-haste synergy there, but that's nothing too major. And this is just a passive effect. So a big problem Druid has at the moment is mana. So that's why Spring Blossom is generally better than Germination. So Germination allows you to apply 2 rejuvenations to the target. So Germination is what you want to be taking in most 5-man environments, just because Spring Blossom, why you're not too concerned about mana, so you can be applying, a rejuvenation and a germination to the target, and they both do a shitload of healing. So Spring Blossom you pretty much want to be taking in raids just because it's a passive effect and just because it's going to be saving you mana. So in a lot of like 6 or 7 minute fights, you're going to be finding yourself probably going if you're using every global cooldown to heal by about 4 or 5 minutes. So being able to just have passive healing from this and just be healing and use some globals and things like Wrath, you are going to be setting yourself up a lot better for the fight, where you can be more effective at healing in times when you need to be healing. So Spring Blossom is just, it just saves you mana basically over having to apply 2 rejuvenations to a target. And then we have the last talent, Inner Peace. So Inner Peace just reduces the cooldown on Tranquility by 60 seconds. Yeah, okay, cool. So Tranquility is the best raid cooldown in the game. So there might be fights where, every 2 minutes there's some huge amount of healing where Tranquility might be good. Again, you're just going to be losing a lot by taking Inner Peace over the other two. There's nothing wrong with it. It is, it can be situationally very good. It's just, are you really going to trade up that 1 minute off Tranquility to lose this passive and to lose the synergy you have with your mastery and whatever else? So yeah, it's just a question you have to be asking. So I generally think Spring Blossoms is the best, but there is a case for the other two. It's kind of up to you. I would generally be taking Spring Blossom though. So the tier 100s, so you have Moment of Clarity. So your Moment of Clarity now affects your next 3 regrowths. Yeah, no, there's not really ever any situation where you want to be taking this. Regrowth just doesn't heal enough to this to be warranted effective. You don't get enough Moments of Clarity to this to be effective, and it won't actually save you more mana than taking Flourish. But we'll go over that last. So Stone Bark reduces the cooldown of your Iron Bark by 30% and increases the healing to that person by 20%. This is very good for your 5-mans if you want to just be rolling on a tank. So you reduce your Iron Bark to a 1 minute cooldown and increase the healing on that person. So if you're struggling with your tank healing in your 5-man environments, you might want to look at picking up Stone Bark. But there is something to be said about picking up Flourish as well in 5-man, so it is situational. I do like to take this talent in 5-mans. It just depends on kind of what level you're doing, how well your DP, how well the rest of your group are, at staying out of AoE damage, so you can be focusing just purely on healing the tank. In your Mythic plus 5-mans, tanks do just get absolutely hammered, so having a cooldown like this is quite nice. It's, a very big cooldown to put on a tank. But yeah, that's pretty much the only environment you want to be taking it in your 5-mans, and then Flourish is the general go-to for all your raids, so it extends the duration of all your hots on everybody by 6 seconds. This is huge, and this is a huge throughput and healing and mana saving cooldown. So as we can see here, we just go hot ourselves up. Do it on myself, so we can just see the durations easier. So we just get every hot in the game. Yep, and then we pop Flourish, and you can see everything just got increased by 6 seconds, and you'll see the wild growth still ticking. You can get another wild growth on there. It'll tick over all the time, and we just get a huge amount of healing. So Flourish you can pretty much use off cooldown, or after periods where you need to be healing people up and you can't be sparing the globals to then be reapplying things like rejuvenation and stuff to people. So Flourish is very, very good. It's pretty much the only one to be taking in raids right now. Yeah, it's a very strong talent, and it's got a 60-yard duration as well, so it's very, very versatile. Okay, so next we'll be going over the artifacts. So our artifact ability is Essence of Genhara. I'm not even going to try that. So just increases the frequency that your healing over time spells tick by 100%. So pretty much it makes everything that ticks for 1 second tick every 0.5 seconds. Everything that ticks for 2 seconds will now tick every 1 second. And that won't reduce the time on your effects. So we'll see here, custom rejuvenation every 2.7 seconds. So you can see it coming up here. We cast the artifact ability. It's going to be coming much more frequently. So yeah, the tooltip updates every 1.4 seconds, and that applies for all your HOTS. So you can pair up Essence of, I'm not going to say it, with you can apply HOTS to everybody. You can Flourish to increase those HOTS, and then you can use your artifact ability, and you can do a huge amount of burst healing. That combined with Tranquility, maybe after you've put all your HOTS out, is you're pretty much just going to be solo healing an entire raid for that period of time. It's a very, very, very strong cooldown if used correctly. If used incorrectly, doesn't do as well as just pressing Tranquility. But it is it's one of the better artifact abilities. So in the artifact traits, we have a lot of good ones in here. Nothing's really useless like some of the other classes. So it is you're always rewarded for going through your artifact abilities. But the first one we want to be picking up is Dreamwalker. So Dreamwalker lets your wild growth have a 50% chance to heal everyone with rejuvenation for 53,000. So when you consider that rejuvenation heals for 116,000, yeah, so it's a lot of healing. It's 50% of your rejuvenation healing, 50% chance. So you can think of every single time you apply this, you're going to be doing on average 25% healing to 25k healing to everybody with rejuvenation. So this one is ridiculously strong. It's a huge throughput talent there. So that's the one you want to be going for first. So you get this one first, you go up, increases all your healing over time effects by 3%. This is probably one of the best artifact traits. Makes your wild growth then heal as well for 21,000. This is another very, very, very good artifact trait. So as you can see already, the amount of synergy you start to be getting with your wild growth is ridiculous, and it's pretty much this way. You just use it like off cooldown. It's very mana efficient, even though it has the largest mana cost of all your spells. It is very mana efficient. So that's kind of a nice thing about the Resto Druid, that you do just have that very large healing spell you can just be using off cooldown. So then next we have increased healing by Efflorescence by 15%. Efflorescence does heal a very large amount now, and then does apply Spring Blossoms, so that's a decent one, and then get into Dreamwalker. So next we want to be going down to Tranquil Mind. So Tranquil Mind increases the healing of your Tranquility by 20%, and it's now castable while moving. So the strongest healing cooldown in the game now pretty much will never get interrupted. So Resto Druid's a very good spot just because of this talent. So we had a lot of things like in HFC where Resto Druids just weren't good for certain encounters because they couldn't use their Tranquility. So things like Manaroth, people would be getting knocked back, people would be getting feared, people would be getting whatever. Tranquility might just not work for that period of time. Your Resto Druid being in the raid might not be appropriate. Now they pretty much have a lot of those problems solved just with the fact that their healing cooldown is able to be casted in a lot more situations. So that's a very nice pickup for the Resto Druid. The 20% increased healing is nothing to scoff at as well. So that's a very good talent there. So these two aren't too great. You know, reduces the damage taken on your Iron Bark by an additional 6%. Cool, good talent. And then increases the healing of your Healing Touch and Regrowth by 10%. Just the initial cost. Yeah, that's right. So, you know, this doesn't cost you very many points to get down to here from Dreamwalker, so definitely want to be picking up Tranquil Mind second. And then, yeah, so next what we want to be doing is going down, getting the reduced mana cost on Wild Growth by 6%, increase the duration on Rejuve and Sunfire and Moonfire by 3 seconds. This is a very strong one. This is something that you are going to be missing out on when you do go up these talents, but these two are just too big to pass up to be taking this early. And then your Knowledge of the Ancients, so increases your mana regeneration by 6%, just passive. Very good, this one here. Mana is a huge problem for the Resto Druid, so this is quite a nice talent to be picking up. 6% mana regeneration is a lot, even though it doesn't sound like it. But yeah. And then your third, that you want to be getting your third artifact trait here. Your Wild Growth has a 25% chance to cause your next rejuvenation or Wild Growth to apply to 2 additional targets within 20 yards. So, you know, just one in every 4 casts, you're going to be getting out 2 extra rejuves on your cast rejuve. Yeah, it's alright. It's worth getting, but it's not too amazing. It doesn't stack up to the other 2. So just some other things to be looking at here are getting, so increase the healing of your Life Bloom by 50%. Life Bloom isn't too incredible of a heal, but you know, 50% increased healing, good. So while you're in your different forms, you get healed by 1%. Yeah, that's right. And then, you know, your Living Seed, just increase the healing on that. So next one thing we want to be talking about is your stats. So Critical Strike is actually your highest throughput at the moment, which is kind of odd. Well, it's not odd, it's just because of how good Living Seed is and the fact that your Healing Touch does kind of have a place now. So crit is alright to take. I would prefer to get haste over it though. Haste just affects all your abilities much better, and then you also aren't, you know, as a healer, you don't really want to be relying on criticals to be your throughput. You just want to be relying on constant healing. So, you know, crit, haste, both very good to take. Yeah, I just don't like crit as a stat for a healer, and I'm sure a lot of people are in the same boat. You know, having a bit of it's alright. I'm not going to be annoyed if it's on my gear, but I would just prefer haste over it. So the Living Seed passive, when you critically heal your next, with your, you know, Swiftmend, Regrowth, Healing Touch, you plant a Living Seed on the target. When they are attacked by something, that Living Seed, then they are healed for 80% of that initial heal. So every time you critical heal, you know, you're going to be doing with your Healing Touch, you'll be doing a, you know, what, 190k heal, and then you'll have a 90k Living Seed potentially that can be procced on that target. So your crit is huge for your single target healing. But then again, are you really, like, if you're going to be playing a, you know, a spot healing role, you probably shouldn't be playing a druid. So that's always something you have to be considering. So I would generally tend to prefer haste. Haste does scale better than crit, just in numbers to percentage wise, and haste does affect all your hots very well. You're never going to hit a haste cap with your hots. So your mastery is the lowest priority for your raid healing. So if you're going to be playing a role where you're just going to be applying rejuvenations to a lot of people in your raid, you kind of want to be staying away from mastery. But if you're going to be doing a lot of Mythic Plus dungeons, mastery is your best friend. You know, you can be applying 7 hots to a tank. You know, you have maybe 70% increased healing on that tank from your hots. That's a huge amount of increased healing by just getting mastery over the other stats. And then versatility, you know, as we know, scales worse than every other stat, because it does have that, you know, decreases the damage you take. So versatility is alright. It's fine for raid healing, but I would, yeah, the damage reduction isn't enough to really warrant taking it over other stats. So a final look at some of the legendaries we have. So the chest piece will increase the effects of all the affinities by 50%. So your Sarah's gift, is actually a fairly large amount of healing. It is a smart heal. It's just a passive that goes on. It does do a lot of healing, so this one isn't too bad to have. It's not one of the better ones, but it is good. So the waste I would probably stay away from. Increases the instant heal of your life flame by 200%, so it makes this go to a 240k heal. It's just not, life flame isn't reliable enough, so this one isn't, it's nothing, 200% increased heal, whoop-de-doo, doesn't really matter. What the shoulders are a fairly nice pickup, so it extends the duration of your rejuves every single time it heals somebody to full HP. So it's alright. It's if you're applying rejuves to full HP, you're probably doing the wrong thing anyway. So it's not the most amazing shoulder piece, but it is good to take. It's not bad. I mean, if you get legendary, be happy, but it's not one of the better ones. So this one here, this is a very good one. The wrist. So your Swiftman increases the duration of all your healing over time effects by 10 seconds. 10 seconds. 10 seconds is longer than the duration of most, healing. Sorry, wild growth. And it's more than 50% of the healing of rejuvenation. So considering you can have 2 Swiftman charges and you can be taking this is insane. Yeah, so this one is really good to get. If you do get it, this is probably the go-to one to be taking. You can just be rolling Swiftmans. Swiftmans have a 25-second cooldown, so you can pretty much be keeping up all your hots on a tank for a very long time. You can be increasing it by 20 seconds by just casting 2 Swiftmans on the tank. You pretty much never have to be applying those hots to that person again. Let's see. This, if you use this effectively on a tank, you can be saving yourself a lot of mana as well, but not having to apply those rejuvenations again. So this one's very strong. The other really strong one is Tranquility. Heals people below 50% HP for 50% more. So what's so good about this one is that you're generally wanting to be casting Tranquility when people are going to be below 50% HP. You're not one individual person, but when the entire raid is taking a lot of damage. So this, essentially when you should be using Tranquility effectively, it's going to be 50% more effective. So this one is a very good pickup here, considering the amount Tranquility does already. This one is very strong as well. And then the last one here, so allies healed by your wild growth have a 20% chance to gain rejuvenation. This one is very good too. This one just does save you a lot of mana. Wild growth isn't the best smart heal, it's just injured allies, so you can be applying rejuvenation to them. 20% chance, so it's about 1 on every wild growth you cast. So it is a nice talent, but it's not. It can essentially just be refreshing the duration on a rejuve, or applying it to someone who doesn't need healing as much. So this one's good. A lot of the legendaries in here are actually very good, but yeah, the wrists here and the feet are both probably the best, followed by the ring. So I think that's pretty much it for the Resto Druid. So Resto Druid is in a very good spot at the moment just because of the sheer throughput they put out. But I do have concerns about that changing. They might, decide to increase the mastery again, put it back to where it was, and reduce the throughput, which will kind of push them more into a single target healing role, which would be interesting to see, having an actual tank healing, another tank healer in the game. But yeah, they do bring a lot of utility, kind of niche utility with Ursol's Vortex and things like Mass Grip, and Innovate's a very good cooldown. They do have a lot of burst healing, and they are very versatile in a raid, so bringing a Resto Druid into your raid will be a very beneficial pickup. They're not, with the healing model the way it is, Resto will be a lot more effective than they were in HFC or any of the other raids in Warlords of Draenor, so they're looking pretty good. My only concern is that anti-synergy and just their mana and longer fights. You might be looking at bringing something like a Holy Priest or something that's more mana efficient for a longer fight, but we'll have to see just, you know, how the healing works and stuff when we actually get into the actual content. But yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed.